If you're watching this video, you're probably experiencing right now a great deal of changes in your life. Or you're feeling very stuck and stagnant and know in your heart and soul there needs to be some major changes in your life that you have to put into motion. You might feel like it's like a closing of a chapter or theme in your life, and you're about to embark in a new direction, on a new journey, delving once again into the complete unknown. And it's very common to be kind of stuck at the starting line. And for a lot of reasons. Maybe you're sad to close this chapter. Maybe you're afraid to start the new one, probably a bit of both. Maybe you don't even know what the new one is yet. You don't know where to go, but you feel as if life or some mysterious force is pushing you into a new direction, closing an old chapter once and for all. If this is happening, it's indicative that you've already made a pretty significant change on the inside, a spiritual upgrade, a vibrational upgrade, as the cool spiritual cats nowadays call it. But there's some truth there, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Have you not been going through a lot of personal growth, a lot of personal changes, a lot of personal breakthroughs, maybe some healing of some old emotion and energy, maybe some awareness of some patterns and beliefs that have been keeping you stuck? If so, fantastic, congratulations. But now it's time to see that reflected in your life. And that's what this video and that's what this time is all about, that transitional period that I suspect you're going through. It reminds me of, 4 or 5 years ago when I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching from this very YouTube channel. I was at one point inspired to become a one-on-one coach. And because it was in alignment, I got a lot of clients, helped a lot of people. It brought me a great deal of joy and satisfaction, and it supported me financially. And even though it was so perfect for a while, there came a point when the same thing started to feel heavy, forced. It became kind of boring. I had done it for so long. Everybody's different, obviously. You're always getting new people, but it was becoming like, been there, done that, same old song and dance. And I wondered, why is this not doing for me what it once did? Why am I not happy doing this? And because it became more and more forced, I was putting less and less and less of my heart into it. And finally, at one time, I had this client on the phone, and they could tell I was like showing up to the session disorganized, and they called me out and they said, "Victor, I don't think you even know who I am." And at first I was like, of course I do. But I really didn't, not beyond they were like one of many names in my notebook. And that's not cool as a coach, right? And I realized that, wow, it became very clear, this is not in alignment anymore. But why? It was so perfect, so fitting at one point, but now I could not deny it was not in alignment. And after that call, I finally did what I've been feeling in my heart to do for some time, which was to stop coaching. I had this sense for months that this is kind of playing itself out and it's time to do something new. But I didn't know what that new thing was at all. I had no clue. What that new thing was. So I just kept taking on clients, assuming this sort of burst of insight would come. Pardon my throat, as you can tell, I have like an allergy thing going on. But anyway, once I realized it was not cool to my clients, I finally heeded the nudging of my inner being, my soul, if you will, and I stopped taking on clients one by one. I had people on 3 and 6 month commitments, so I still had clients for a time, but I stopped taking new ones on. So as the clients started dropping off one by one, as their term came to a close, so too my bank account dwindled more and more and more and more. And still no direction, no idea of where to go with my life and my business, but it still felt right. I was feeling better as my time and space was becoming less cluttered with something that was no longer in alignment, I felt like, I would say, more at peace, more in alignment. It's the best way I could put it. Like the wind has returned to my sails. But still, my mind was like, what are you going to do about the money? And I remember this one time, it was around the new year. And at that point, I had very few clients. I had very little money in my bank account. And we needed some new furniture for a home we were living in, my family and I. We went to the store, bought some stuff, couch and stuff like that. And I remember getting home and like looking at the receipt and then looking at my like bank account, realizing that I couldn't afford it. We had purchased too much stuff and we were gonna go into like, like below zero in our bank account. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? But then, as has happened to me so many times, it's almost as if my spirit likes to like mess with me a little bit. It took me right to the brink of financial collapse. And then I had it. And by it, I mean an idea. I finally kind of had a intuitive, inspired idea of what was to come next. And that was to run in-person retreats. And just the thought of that, gathering people and working with them in a group, in person, it was like, whoa. It like blew me away. I felt so excited and it evoked so much passion. But like a lot of new things, as you might well know, it brought up a ton of fear and doubt. There was like a balance. Depending on the moment you caught me, I could have been like, oh my God, this feels so resonant. I'm so excited. It's going to be amazing. Oh my God, it's the next step. I know it. I feel it in my bones and my soul. Yes. And depending, 5 minutes later, maybe, it was like, oh boy, you've never done retreats before. What if nobody comes? That was a big fear of mine. What if I announce it and say, hey, I'm doing a retreat. It's in this location. It costs this much money. Here's the dates. And crickets, nobody comes. That was a fear. That was a big one. But then I had another fear. And the fear was, what if people did come and I didn't know what I was doing, which I didn't. I've never run a retreat before at that point. I've never even really been to a retreat. So it was like, what if I can't deliver? What if people come and spend money and they expect a lot out of me and I can't deliver? So all these worst case what if types of scenarios that filled my body with like almost the opposite energy of passion and joy and excitement, and brought up all this fear and doubt and worry and holy shit, what's going to happen? Can you relate to that, my friend? When you go and try to do something new, on one hand, you can kind of feel it's meant to be in your path, but then on the flip side, it fills you with fear and doubt. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they end up flipping the coin and listening to that doubt. Luckily, I've learned over the years to pretty much ignore that. If anything, see it as a good sign. I'm about to do something cool and break through into a new dimension of myself and my life path, and I went for it. I whipped up a little retreat page. And when you're working on something that's in alignment, it just flows, man. I remember even building like the sales page, which is not something I like to do. But even the creation of that felt so inspired. It kind of came through in almost an effortless and joyful way, something I normally don't even like doing. And it sold out in less than 2 weeks. I was blown away. The retreat booked out faster than I could have expected within about a couple of weeks. I earned as much money as I was earning coaching, but I only had to kind of quote unquote work for like, 4 days, basically 5 or 6 days if you can include like preparing and stuff. And the experience was absolutely magical. We hosted it in Sedona, Arizona. And, I brought my buddy Josh, and my wife helped me run it. So I had kind of a little team. And I was just so, I don't even know the word for it, just so fulfilled, I would say, working with people in person like that. There's a magic, there's a buzz, there was a depth of transformation that I couldn't really do with one-on-one coaching. It was like more of an immersive, powerful experience. And to be a part of that it felt like such a blessing. Now, I know some of you were thinking, Vic, I'm not there yet. I don't know my next step. But my current situation is getting worse by the day. What do I do? You, my friend, might have to do what one of my psychic friends says is chase the vibe. What do you mean chase the vibe? Chase the vibe. It means you might have a calling to go somewhere or to leave somewhere. During these chapter closing transitional times in our life, it's quite common for the spiritual seeker to move or to make a change in their career, their relationships, or their living situation. You know, there was a time when I felt this like burning desire, you could say, this like knowing I needed, was like the way it felt to move to San Diego, California. My buddy Aaron is going through this right now. He's been in Austin. In fact, he came to Austin 3 or 4 years ago, and we came out kind of following him in a way. And we've been hanging out and doing our thing. And he's like, he feels this calling to go to Venice. He's always loved Venice. And he said he just feels this knowing he's got to go to California, got to go to Venice. He doesn't know why. And as he's having this sort of pull, he's realizing how much he doesn't like, how out of alignment his situation is. It's summer here in Austin. He's like, and Aaron loves to walk. He walks like 10 to 15,000 steps a day. And so for him to go outside in this extremely hot, climate, it's driving him bonkers. He's in a house that doesn't really make sense. He's in a really beautiful neighborhood, but they're like older people, and Aaron's like this young single guy. So he's just looking around his life that was once so perfect, realizing this is just doesn't feel right. So on one hand, there's like the negative contrast of his environment, and also this pull to go somewhere, a location in space and time, but he doesn't know why. That's chasing the vibe. It's realizing there's a vibrational mismatch in your life. And usually when you realize that, there's some kind of yearning to go elsewhere where you at least think it might be better. And if that's the case, that is kind of hard because it really takes a lot of faith. That's why I'm very proud of Aaron for making the move, because he's just going to do it. He's a bold cat like me. But what I found, I've done this before, when you chase the vibe, if you will, whether it's going to a new job, going into a new relationship, or leaving an old one behind, it's some type of rearrangement of your external reality to match the new you. When you do that, when you take bold, courageous, faithful action and do that, what happens is it almost feels like a breath of fresh air enters your life. There's a feeling of expansiveness, a feeling of passion, a feeling of alignment. And in this sort of environment, you can thrive. And if you're lingering around in a situation that's out of alignment vibrationally because you've made such changes in yourself, you're not going to thrive. You're not, even if it makes perfect sense on paper and you're like, well, here's why it's going to work, yada, yada, it doesn't matter. It's about the energy. If your energy is being kind of bogged down by a person, career, living situation, location where you're living, etc., it doesn't matter how beautiful it looks on paper. It's not going to work. You need to be in a place where you're meant to be. And you are able to kind of tell where you're meant to be by how you feel where you are now and how you feel about maybe some possible future scenario. And sometimes you have no idea where to go and you have to just let go first and on blind faith. I've done that as well. But regardless, I'll never forget, there's a time my family and I went through the exact same thing, ironically, like Aaron with California, where I felt called. I knew in my soul I had to close down my businesses. We chose to sell our house. We pretty much packaged up our entire existence in Michigan, where I once lived, and moved out to San Diego. That was what called me San Diego, California. And it was this crazy leap of faith. I didn't know what was waiting for me out in California beside like the sunshine and the sunset on the beach and stuff like that. I just knew I had to be there. And I'll never forget, after this long, prolonged transitional period of like pretty much closing up and leaving behind my entire previous life, we set out in a 21-foot RV that was pulled behind our like Suburban. My family and I, 3 kids, wife, dog, cat, all in this little car through the mountains, through the winter, like the snowy, icy mountains. I'll never forget when we finally arrived in California. We made it just in time for the sunset on Mission Beach. And I'll see if I can find it, but there's just kind of this cool photo of like me and my 2 younger kids. My third one was a little baby, so my wife was like holding him. And we're like this. We're like, our feet are in the sand. We're looking up at like the sky with our arms in the air. We all have our like water bottles, and it's this like cute little perfect like moment of we've made it. We've arrived. And as we were stepping onto that beach, watching that sunset, even though I didn't know what was next, I knew I was in the right place. I had this feeling of the support of the universe, basically. And it was a beautiful thing. And then literally 6 months after that, my business exploded. We were upgrading our living situation, and we were just absolutely thriving. My kids were happy. We were in like a massively upgraded situation, which is always the result of making the internal changes, which it sounds like you have, but then on faith and courage, taking the necessary steps that will present themselves to you at the appropriate time to rearrange your reality so that it's a match. And if you feel stuck, my friend, and you feel like there's some stuck energy blocking your awareness of your next step, what can help is something that involves your physical body. I'm going to share with you a free breathwork ceremony. It's somatic release breathwork. I'll leave a link down below. This session, I guide myself. It's amazing for releasing pent-up emotion, energy, beliefs, and connecting more deeply with your higher awareness. The breathing actually releases small amounts of DMT, so you'll literally elevate your consciousness during it. It's totally free. Take it if you want. I'll leave a link down below. With that said, I'll see you next time, my friends. Have an amazing day. Much love.